So, fam, stuff going down in Colombia, stuff going down in Afghanistan, in Kabul. You might not know about it because the mainstream media has been completely freaking silent on this one. They want to cover the fact that and still make it look like Joe Biden is the hero for extending a deadline in Afghanistan by 5 months after we've already been there for 20 plus years without explanation why. You know what I'm saying? And then you have people like Nancy Pelosi who said, well, we have to pull them out safely. We have to protect the troops. But that's not the case. It's all a bunch of hogwash. It's all a bunch of lie. So in Afghanistan, this was last week. We didn't have a chance to cover this because we went over to Arizona. So last week, the fighting erupted in Afghanistan after U.S. pullout deadline. Okay. So in other words, we had a deadline on May 1st. We were supposed to meet that deadline. We did not. We extended it. The Taliban armed group launches assaults across Afghanistan after missed U.S. deadline to withdraw a troop. It says Afghanistan's security forces have fought back a Taliban offensive in the southern Helmand province, officials and residents have said, as the armed group launched assaults around the country after a missed United States deadline to withdraw troops. Atullah Afghan, the head of the Helmand Provincial Council, said the Taliban has launched its offensive on Monday from multiple directions. The group attacked checkpoints around the outskirts of the provincial capital, Khalkhashar Gah, taking over some of them, he said. So what's going on, fam, is the fact that we had a May 1st deadline, right? Mm. We didn't stand by our word. We didn't honor our negotiations, even though it was done by the last administration and Donald Trump. For some odd reason, Joe Biden extended it. And I don't know why he's getting praised for this when he's extending the deadline. And more stuff like this is going to happen. And you know as well as I do, they're going to manufacture consent, stay in there, if not send mercenaries. You know, we're going to outsource our military, and we're never going to leave.
Yeah. So remember when Donald Trump wanted to remove the troops from Afghanistan, and then all the neoliberals and Democrats and everybody was complaining that he was going to do it the wrong way, that we needed to do it the right way. And then progressives, a lot of them were like, we don't want Trump to do that, because they didn't want to give him credit. It was all about like, we have to be against big orange men bad. So they didn't want to give him credit. Now that Joe Biden says, well, I'm going to pull the troops out, but I'm going to extend it 6 months till 9/11. They're like, oh, see, Biden's better. He's pulling the troops out. Not understanding that all that's happening is a privatization of these mercenaries and these private troops, which is actually worse, because then they have no allegiance to actually have a protocol. Yeah. If they're private mercenaries, they have more
less accountability.
Like literally freedom to do whatever it is they want. There's no one for them to account to. They're not accountable to you and me. They're a private entity. Yeah. So that's what it's 10,000 times worse, by the way. So when these fucking neo-progressives are trying to paint this as, oh my God, Joe Biden is doing such a great job, they're cucks, because they're literally, this is 10,000 times worse for not just for Afghanistan and the Middle East, but for us, because they're not talking about this. They're pretending that Joe Biden is doing so amazing. And you don't get to hear, like when Trump did it, you don't get to hear, oh, how terrible it is and all this crap. No, you just get to hear nothing.
Yeah. And they never really give a reason why they extended it. I mean, if I had to guess, it's because they want time for the military to train the mercenaries, maybe, and get them accustomed to what's going on. Yeah. So that's what the extra 5-6 months would be for, because this whole thought process, and when the Democrats say, like, you know, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, we need time to get them out safely. We can't put them in the harm's way. How stupid is that you really believe that pulling them out is not going to be the safest thing possible? When you get them out of there, they are out of harm's way. When you keep them there, they are in harm's way. So they use all this double talk, and they've been there for 21 years, and they all supported these wars, including Joe Biden. He was one of the first to support a surge. So let's pay attention to what's going on. Now, this is right after the deadline was breached. We have a reporter there who's doing some work from Al Jazeera. Listen to what he has to say on how the negotiations are going since Biden extended the withdrawal date 5 months. By the way, that extension was never agreed to with the Taliban or the Afghan government. They just said that shit, and they went away from the actual agreement that was in paper.
So what did you take from what we heard about, I guess, whether U.S. troops would remain a target or not? To clarify, today, May 1st, they were supposed to be all gone if Donald Trump was still the president. He's not. Joe Biden says, as you pointed out, it'll be by September the 11th. So what could happen in the interim?
Well, the Taliban have not declared an all-out war after this agreement expired on May the 1st. You've seen not just from the spokesman here in Doha, from the political office, but the Taliban spokesman in Kabul, Zabiullah Mujahid, in Afghanistan, saying that their agreement has been void now, that especially that part of the agreement is void. And I asked them point blank, do they remain committed to their side of the agreement, that they will not allow Afghan soil to be not used by elements such as Al-Qaeda against any foreign forces? And they say that they remain committed. Suhail Shaheen, after that interview, did tell us that he is going to make sure, he's going to speak to the Taliban High Command, and they are awaiting instructions on how to proceed, not just in the battlefield, but also on the diplomatic arena. So you're going to continue to hear these statements where Taliban seem to be ratcheting up the rhetoric that their side of the bargain has been kept and the Americans broke the agreement, but they have not declared that they are going to begin targeting American troops. It's worth noting, since the agreement since last year in February, the Taliban have not targeted foreign troops, but there have been clashes and an escalation of violence between the Taliban and Afghan government forces.
Osama bin Javed with more there on the current situation in Afghanistan. Thank you, Osama.
Pasta.
Yeah, play the other video, Oz, really quick, and we'll
We're
talk
just
about.
checking on you.
Yeah. Scratch the video. Don't worry about it. Get out of
This
there.
now with
here
Osama
it
bin
is.
Javed, our correspondent who's been following the negotiations in Doha. Let's pick up on the final point made there by the Taliban spokesman, Osama, the fact that they say they are committed to peace and to a peaceful resolution in Afghanistan. Do the talks reflect that? I mean, is there progress to report?
Well, those are the words that we've been hearing for the last year since the Americans signed the deal with the Taliban in February. But there's little progress on the ground. You've seen the attacks spiking. You've seen the scathing criticism coming from the Afghan government. And if statements are anything to go by, you heard the Taliban spokesman there talk about investigating the Logar attack, in which civilians were killed. And you heard from the Afghan president saying that the Taliban were responsible. So it is going to be a continuation of competing narratives in a very divided space in Afghanistan as U.S. forces prepare to leave. Their formal withdrawal has begun from May the 1st, and according to the U.S. president, will be completed by September the 11th. And this remains to be the sticking point. The Taliban saying that because they signed an agreement and committed that they will withdraw by May the 1st, and the other side saying that the Taliban has not really shown enough progress in severing ties, bringing down the level of violence, and negotiating in good faith with the Afghan government. And there's a lot of frustration doing the rounds, not just on part of the Afghan government, but other officials as well, who've been trying to tone down the Taliban's rhetoric in saying that you are a party to the conflict, and Afghanistan is not going to look like what it did 20 years ago.
So there you have it, fam, right now. I mean, everything's in chaos. You can see a lot of that, the video with troops just going in people's houses and whatnot. As soon as they passed the deadline, all of a sudden there was attacks all over the country, organized around there. We're not wanted there. We need to get the hell out. This whole extending the deadline was just a bunch of malarkey, literally by Joe Biden. I can't believe a lot of progressives still bought into it. Well, if he does pull out the troops by September 11th, why is he doing that? Why? Why is he extending the date line that we already agreed to with the Taliban and the Afghan government? Well, here's some more bad news, because just the other day in Afghanistan, Kabul Blast, and this is in Kabul, it kills at least 50 and scores injured. So in other words, Afghani security officials have not said what caused the blast near a school in the western section of the capital. Reports are conflicting to what occurred, and no group has yet claimed responsibility. So here we go. Right now, the Afghan government was blaming the Taliban. The Taliban was saying they didn't do it, and they were blaming ISIS or other groups. The country is in such chaos that there are other groups that have now popped up over there that are just as radical. Sunnis killing Shias. It's just crazy, and we have caused this chaos there.
Right, and that's the point, because we want an excuse to say, oh, this is too dangerous.
Yeah.
We got to protect the Afghani women.
Yep.
We have to interfere because of humanitarian. We have to give humanitarian aid. We got to protect. But guys, like, we're going to talk about this in the next section. If we cared about freaking humanitarian aid, what we would not condone what's happening in Israel, Palestine, or what's happening in Yemen. It's not about that. They're just trying to find an excuse, buy themselves time, to actually to say, oh, this chaos we must come in and save the day. Again, we've been through this before under the Obama administration. He said that he would take the troops out of Afghanistan. I remember this, and he didn't. And they kept giving you excuses and extensions and excuses. Here we are again. People falling for it, I think at this point is just absolutely just you again, you're all cucks. Like, I can't anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. How many times are they going to fool you? Even George Bush said it himself, right, fam?
Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't fool me again. And we also talked about the fact that they will talk about women, right? They will say women are going to be the issue right now. Shias getting killed in Afghanistan will be a problem, but yet we can starve the Shias in Iran with sanctions and kill them. That's okay right there. And then fund Sunni extremists in Saudi Arabia, but that's okay. It's a bunch of shit. We need to get out. We need to stop meddling in these people's business. I don't want to hear anything. Oh, they've been fighting each other for years. Let them sort it out without us there, without us arming everybody to the friggin' T. There won't be so many deaths. But here it is again. We heard now the Taliban hasn't taken credit or responsibility for this last attack. So who did it? Did the new radical groups over there? Did the CIA do it to manufacture consent? Here it is. An explosion outside a girls' school in the Dasht-e-Baraki neighborhood of western Kabul on Saturday killed more than 50 people. By the way, the death toll is up to like 60 people now. All of them civilians, with most of them being young girls between the ages of 11 and 15. The blast left more than 100 people injured. Afghani Interior Ministry spokesperson Tariq Aran said that the massive blast occurred around 4:30 p.m. local time when the girls were leaving school. At least 30 people were initially reported dead, but the number of casualties rose to 50 on Sunday, the ministry said. Afghani security officials would not comment on the cause of the blast, and eyewitness accounts have been so far conflicting, with some suggesting a series of rockets, attacks, and other car bombs. So right now, we don't know who's behind the deadly attack. And that's the next part. Who's behind the deadly attack? No one claimed responsibility for the explosion, but the Afghan government has pointed at the Taliban. The Taliban are behind this attack. They carried out similar attacks on education institutions in the past, Iranian said. The insurgents have denied involvement and condemned the attack. Taliban spokesperson Zambala Mahajadid told reporters that the Islamic State, IS, could be responsible for such a heinous crime. He also accused the Afghan intelligence service of complicity with IS, though they offered no evidence to support the claim. So there you go. Again, there are claims that the government is funding ISIS of sorts, or the Islamic State, to fight the Taliban, you know what I'm saying, and fight each other. So they're using mercenaries as well. Right. But this is all funded through United States intervention, our weapons, our money. We need to get the hell out. Afghan President Afghan Gharani issued a statement condemning the attack. In it, he blamed the Taliban, though he too failed to offer proof to back his claim, saying only the savage group, the Taliban, does not have the power to confront security forces on the battlefield, and instead targets with brutality and barbarianism public facilities and the girls' school. The jihadist group Islamic State maintains an active presence in Afghan and has previously attacked minority Shiite areas in western Kabul, specifically targeting women and children. Last year, ICE claimed to be behind 2 brutal attacks on education facilities that killed 50 people, most of them students. So there you go, fam. It's chaos, right? And we don't know what's what. All we know is that it's another Syrian situation where the Pentagon and the CIA were funding different fashions of what's going on. Right. Everybody's killing each other. The military-industrial complex is making money hand over fist because they're supplying all the weapons and guns. They don't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. They only care that there is a war, because then they get funded to the T no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything has been a mess since our intervention in the Middle East. I mean, literally every country we have touched has completely just gone from actually being countries that were like, if you ever go through the pictures of what Syria used to look like before, and if you go through just any of these countries, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, what they looked like before U.S. interventionism versus to what they look like now, that will break you down. Like, it will make you cry. I mean, when people think of the Middle East, they think of bombs. They think of just ragged buildings and destruction. Like, obviously, that's not all there is, but a lot of that exists because of U.S. interventionism, of course, and our partner and ally, Israel, as well.
Yeah. I mean,
in Saudi Arabia.
That's what they're going to do. They're going to use all this information, try to manufacture consent, saying we have to stay there because the Shia girls are getting killed left and right.
Right.
The Sunni extremists are killing them.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was a U.S. CIA.
Yeah.
Manufactured.
To stay there and do things and stuff like that. We're past the deadline. And as soon as that deadline passed, there was attacks all over the place because we are still there. We agreed to leave. Now we're not leaving. And we've been there for 20-something odd years. I don't know how you're protecting the troops or protecting the civilians. Let's show a picture of Nancy Pelosi to see these bloody shoes. This should say it all. And you could try to put it on any extremist group you want, blame this person, that person, Sunni, Shia. It's us. We're there. Our presence is what's causing chaos in Afghanistan. We've been there for 21 friggin' years. And who always suffers at the end of the day, whether it be at home, whether it be abroad? It's the poor, right? Okay, so we have another tweet here. Most of the girls killed in Kabul attack on Sunday were desperately poor. One was the first literate person in her family. Others worked as carpet weavers to pay for school. So it's always the poor, whether it be at home or abroad, that are always suffering from the boot of imperialism. We need to get the hell out of here. And for anybody out there who's saying, oh, this is really good that Joe Biden's actually doing this, bullshit. It's a bunch of malarkey. He extended the date for no reason with no explanation. You all bought it. You swallowed it. Okay. And let's not forget this. Before anybody wanted to surge in Afghanistan, it was Joe Biden. Here he is. Got it, Oz?
President and his policies. If we surge troops anywhere, it should be in Afghanistan. And the reason for that is, and I'm telling you more than I know you know this, but there's no easy way to deal with these incredibly complicated and consequential issues. When I was in Afghanistan last, sitting with a British general, I said, General, how long do you think your parliament's going to allow you to stay? He said, Senator, we have a expression in my country. As long as the big dog's in the pen, the small dogs will stay. But once the big dog's gone, the small dogs won't stay. It totally depends on you, Senator, and your commitment of your country here. Well, guess what? NATO has taken on the responsibilities it should for Afghanistan. But as we have denuded the forces in Afghanistan for purposes of engaging in a civil war in Iraq, what has happened? You've had the Germans and you've had others in NATO now constraining the role of their soldiers in that area so they cannot be aggressive. They cannot be proactive. So there's a direct relationship. We can have a 4-to-1 multiplier to the troops. If we make it clear to the Europe that we've made the commitment to Afghanistan and to rebuild it, which is incredibly cheaper than what's going on here, they will participate. But if we don't, they're saying, whoa, wait a minute, man. You're telling me this is not that important and you're asking me to send more troops? It's a direct correlation.
So there it is, warmongering Joe years ago, right there. I mean, the same language all the time for this guy. How the hell did this guy get elected? I mean, I don't believe that shit. There's no way. This guy was a warmonger, and he's out there trying to act like I was always against what's going on in Afghanistan. No, you were the first. And look at the language.
Realize all
Our allies are involved, fam. We got to get involved. We have to do this.
We need an anti-war movement now. I mean, with what's happening in Afghanistan, with what's happening in Colombia, with what's happening in Palestine, Israel relations. Why don't we have an anti-war movement right now sitting out there protesting? Why don't we have a March for Palestinians? Why is Yemen able to get their people out there? Maybe because they're directly affected by U.S. imperialism, right?
Yep.
Guess what? You are too. You just don't realize it.
You don't realize it, and you have been distracted, and you have been consumed. And I get it, but you got to get your head around and look at this stuff right now. You know, I mean, I said this before, Pam, and maybe I'm wrong for saying this because maybe we can do both, but I think that there are too many people on the left that are more interested or more upset by Dave Rubin's rhetoric than they are
by anyone's rhetoric.
Yeah.
Rose McGowan,
anybody's rhetoric.
Like, no, we're policing now people's rhetoric. We're too busy starting fucking culture wars on people's fucking rhetoric instead of caring about people getting bombs. Come on, Like, let's cut the crap. Like, anytime these people distract you with, oh, she said something and now she's anti this and anti that, you don't get to decide someone is anti this or that by a tweet they made or something. But like, criticism of a politician is what it came down to. And it's like, these are the things that are distracting us from actually mobilizing for the things that matter. Because again, we live in a war economy where you don't even see the profit of it. Not that it's still acceptable, but you don't even get to see the profit
there are
off of it.
jobs created, fam. There are jobs.
There could be jobs of maintaining peace.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to constantly involve ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
We shouldn't be engineering war. We should be engineering peace. And so that's that.